Marcus Wellington woke up at 5 in the morning. The sun was not up yet, and the city outside his window was still quiet. He lived in a big apartment in New York, but his bedroom was simple. There was a bed, a small table, and a chair. Nothing fancy. Marcus liked it that way. He did not need to show off his money. He had more money than most people could imagine, but he did not live like other rich people. He got out of bed and went to the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror. He was 42 years old, but people often said he looked younger. His hair was cut short and he had a kind face. He smiled at his reflection. Today was going to be a good day. He had a big meeting in San Francisco and he was excited about it. Marcus put on his favorite jeans. They were old and comfortable. He wore them almost everywhere. Then he pulled on a gray sweater. It was soft and warm. He looked like any regular person going to work. That was exactly what he wanted. Marcus did not like to dress in expensive suits unless he had to. He believed that clothes did not make a person important. Actions did. He walked to the kitchen and made himself coffee. The smell filled the small space and made him feel awake. He drank it slowly while looking at his phone. There were many emails, but he would read them on the plane. He ate a banana and some toast. Simple breakfast for a simple morning. At 6 o'clock, his car arrived. The driver was Tom, a man who had worked for Marcus for 5 years. Tom knew that Marcus did not like fancy treatment. He treated Marcus like a friend, not like a boss. They talked about sports and weather on the way to the airport. Marcus laughed at Tom's jokes. It felt good to be normal. When they arrived at JFK Airport, Marcus thanked Tom and grabbed his backpack. It was an old black backpack that he had used for years. Inside were his laptop, a book, and some papers for his meeting. He did not carry expensive luggage. He did not need it. The airport was busy. People rushed everywhere with their suitcases and bags. Children cried. Announcements echoed through the building. Marcus walked calmly through the crowd. He had flown so many times that airports felt like a second home to him. He went to the check-in counter. The woman there smiled at him. She checked his ticket and his ID. She did not recognize him. Most people did not. Marcus liked it that way. He could move through the world without being noticed. It made life easier. Marcus had bought an economy ticket. He always flew in economy class. His assistant had tried many times to book him first-class tickets, but he always said no. He believed that flying in the back of the plane kept him humble. It reminded him of where he came from. When he was young, he could not afford to fly at all. Now he was a billionaire, but he did not want to forget his past. He went through security. He took off his shoes and put his backpack on the belt. The security officer looked at him carefully. This happened sometimes. Marcus was used to it. He smiled politely and waited. The officer checked his bag and let him through. Marcus put his shoes back on and walked to his gate. The gate area was crowded. There were families with children, business people in suits, and students with heavy backpacks. Marcus found a seat near the window and sat down. He pulled out his laptop and started reading his emails. He had to review some reports before his meeting. Time passed quickly. Marcus was focused on his work. Then he heard his name on the speaker. Marcus Wellington, please come to the gate desk. Marcus Wellington to the gate desk, please. He looked up, surprised. He closed his laptop and walked to the desk. A young woman in an airline uniform smiled at him. She had kind eyes and a friendly face. Mr. Wellington? She asked. Yes, that's me, Marcus said. Good morning, sir. I have good news for you. Our economy section is oversold today, and because you are one of our top frequent flyers, we are upgrading you to first class. Here is your new boarding pass. She handed him a new ticket. It said C2A, first class. Marcus was surprised but also grateful. The flight to San Francisco was 6 hours long. Having more space would be nice. He could work more comfortably. Thank you very much, Marcus said. I appreciate it. You're welcome, sir. We will start boarding in about 10 minutes. First class boards first, so you can go ahead and line up whenever you're ready. Marcus nodded and walked back to his seat. He packed up his laptop and put it in his backpack. He felt good. It was a nice surprise to start the day. He did not expect special treatment, but sometimes it came anyway. When the boarding announcement came, Marcus stood up. He joined the line for first-class passengers. There were about 15 people in line. Most of them wore expensive clothes. The men had on nice suits. The women wore designer dresses and carried fancy handbags. Marcus looked down at his jeans and old sweater. He looked different from everyone else, but he did not care. The line moved slowly. People showed their boarding passes and walked down the jet bridge. Marcus waited patiently. He was not in a hurry. He never rushed. Life was better when you took your time. Finally, it was his turn. He showed his boarding pass to the gate agent. The agent scanned it and smiled. "Have a great flight, Mr. Wellington." "Thank you," Marcus said. He walked down the jet bridge. It was a long hallway that connected the airport to the airplane. His footsteps echoed softly. He could hear the sounds of the plane ahead. People talking. Bags being stored. The flight attendants giving instructions. Marcus stepped onto the plane. The entrance was bright and clean. A young flight attendant stood there with a big smile. She looked at his boarding pass. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Wellington. You're in seat 2A on the left side, second row. Have a wonderful flight." "Thank you," Marcus said. He walked into the first-class cabin. The seats were big and comfortable. They were covered in leather and had lots of space. There were only a few rows in first class. Most of the passengers were already seated. They looked up briefly as Marcus walked by, then went back to their phones or magazines. Marcus found his seat. It was by the window. Perfect. He could look outside during the flight. He put his backpack in the overhead bin and sat down. The seat was soft and had plenty of legroom. He could stretch out. This was definitely better than economy. He buckled his seatbelt and relaxed. He closed his eyes for a moment. The day was starting well. He had no idea that in just a few minutes everything would change. He had no idea that he was about to face a situation that would test his patience and his character. He had no idea that this flight would become one of the most important moments of his life. For now, Marcus Wellington was just a man sitting in a comfortable seat, ready to fly to San Francisco. He was calm. He was happy, and he was completely unprepared for what was about to happen next. Marcus sat in his comfortable first-class seat and looked out the window. He could see workers loading bags onto the plane. The morning sun was getting brighter. It was going to be a beautiful day for flying. He felt peaceful and ready for the journey ahead. More passengers kept coming onto the plane. They walked past him with their carry-on bags. Some struggled to lift their luggage into the overhead bins. The flight attendants helped them with smiles and kind words. Marcus watched quietly. He liked to observe people. It was one of his habits. He learned a lot about human nature just by watching. A well-dressed man sat down in seat 1B, right in front of Marcus. He wore an expensive suit and carried a leather briefcase. He nodded at Marcus briefly before pulling out his phone. A woman in a beautiful dress took the seat across the aisle. She had diamond earrings that sparkled in the light. Everyone in first class looked wealthy and important. Everyone except Marcus in his jeans and old sweater. Marcus did not mind. He never judged people by their clothes, and he hoped they would not judge him either. But he knew the world did not always work that way. He had learned this lesson many times in his life. People made assumptions. They looked at his skin color and his casual clothes and made quick decisions about who he was. It still hurt even after all these years, but Marcus had learned to stay calm and dignified no matter what happened. He was about to pull out his laptop when he heard a loud voice behind him. "Excuse me, sir." Marcus turned around. A flight attendant was standing in the aisle. She was a white woman in her 50s with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was perfectly neat. Her name tag said Patricia, but her face was not friendly. She was looking at Marcus with a strange expression. Her lips were pressed together in a thin line. Her eyes were cold. "Yes?" Marcus said politely. "Can I help you?" "I think there has been a mistake," Patricia said. Her voice was sharp. "Economy class is in the back of the plane. You need to go back there." Marcus blinked in surprise. He had not expected this. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his boarding pass. He held it up so Patricia could see it clearly. "I have a first-class ticket," he said calmly. "I was upgraded at the gate." "Seat 2A." Patricia snatched the boarding pass from his hand. She did not ask permission. She just took it. Her fingers gripped it tightly as she examined it. She held it close to her face and squinted at it. She looked at it for a long time as if she was trying to find something wrong with it. Marcus felt his heart beat faster. He recognized what was happening. He had been through this before. Not on a plane, but in stores, in restaurants, in hotels. People saw a black man and assumed he did not belong in nice places. They assumed he could not afford expensive things. They assumed he was lying or trying to cheat the system. This must be a mistake, Patricia said again. She was almost talking to herself now. This cannot be right. It is right, Marcus said. His voice was still calm but firmer now. The gate agent gave it to me. They upgraded me because economy class was oversold. You can check your computer system if you want. Patricia did not move. She kept staring at the boarding pass. Other passengers were starting to notice. The man in seat 1B looked up from his phone. The woman across the aisle stopped reading her magazine. People in the rows behind were craning their necks to see what was happening. These seats are for premium passengers, Patricia said. She said the word premium like it meant something special, like it meant people who were better than others. You don't belong here. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had learned long ago that anger did not help in situations like this. Anger made things worse. People expected black men to get angry. They wanted him to yell or make a scene. Then they could call security and say he was being aggressive. Marcus knew this game. He would not play it. Ma'am, he said slowly and clearly, I have a valid boarding pass for this seat. I was upgraded legitimately. I belong here just as much as anyone else. Patricia's face turned red, but it was not embarrassment. It was defiance. She did not like being challenged. She did not like that Marcus was not backing down. I am calling the head flight attendant, she announced loudly. She wanted everyone to hear. She wanted everyone to know that there was a problem passenger. She turned and marched toward the front of the plane. Marcus sat very still. He could feel everyone's eyes on him. Some people looked away quickly when he glanced at them. Others stared openly. He heard whispers behind him. What's going on? I think she's saying he shouldn't be in first class. Is this really happening? Marcus took a deep breath. He had done nothing wrong. He had a valid ticket. He had been polite and respectful. But none of that seemed to matter to Patricia. She had decided he did not belong, and now she was going to make a big scene about it. A minute later, Patricia returned with another flight attendant. This one was a man in his 30s. He was tall and thin with dark hair. His name tag said Richard. He looked uncomfortable. His eyes darted around nervously. Sir, I'm Richard, the head flight attendant, he said. Can I see your boarding pass, please? Patricia still had it in her hand. She gave it to Richard. He looked at it, then pulled out a small tablet computer. He typed something on the screen. He scrolled through information. His face was serious and focused. Marcus waited. He knew what the computer would show. It would show that his upgrade was real. It would show that he had every right to be in seat 2A. But he also knew that sometimes facts did not matter. Sometimes people believed what they wanted to believe. Richard looked up from his tablet. He glanced at Patricia, then at Marcus. Mr. Wellington, your upgrade is legitimate, he said quietly. You are assigned to seat 2A. Everything is in order. Marcus felt relief wash over him. Finally, someone with sense. But Patricia was not done. Richard, I really think there might be an error in the system, she said. She was speaking loudly again. She wanted the other passengers to hear. Perhaps Mr. Wellington would be more comfortable in economy class, where he won't feel out of place. Marcus stared at her. He could not believe she had just said that. The meaning was clear. She was saying he did not fit in with the other first-class passengers. She was saying he was different. She was saying he was less than them. I think the first-class passengers sometimes complain when the cabin doesn't maintain a certain standard, Patricia continued. She looked at Marcus when she said the word standard. She wanted him to know exactly what she meant. Several passengers gasped. The man in seat 1B stood up suddenly. His face was red with anger. What did you just say? He demanded. The woman across the aisle had her phone out. She was recording everything. Her hands shook with anger or excitement or both. This is unbelievable, she whispered to herself, but loud enough for others to hear. I cannot believe this is happening. Richard looked like he wanted to disappear. He put his hand on Patricia's arm. Patricia, maybe we should discuss this in private, he said softly. But Patricia pulled her arm away. She crossed her arms over her chest and stared at Marcus with a stubborn expression. She was not backing down. She had made her position clear. As far as she was concerned, Marcus did not belong in first class, and she was going to make sure everyone knew it. Marcus remained seated. His hands were folded in his lap. His face was calm, but inside his heart was breaking. This was supposed to be a normal day, a good day. He was supposed to fly to San Francisco, have his meeting and fly home. Instead, he was being humiliated in front of dozens of people. He was being told he was not good enough. He was being treated like he was a problem that needed to be solved. And the worst part was that this was not new. This was his reality. This was what it meant to be a successful black man in America. No matter how much money he had, no matter how hard he had worked, no matter what he had accomplished, there would always be people like Patricia who looked at him and saw only his skin color, who decided he did not belong before they even knew his name. Marcus took another deep breath. He would handle this with dignity. He would not give them a reason to make him leave. He would stand his ground quietly and firmly until the truth won out. Because the truth always won eventually. It just took time and patience. The first-class cabin had become completely silent. Everyone was watching, waiting. The tension in the air was thick. Marcus could feel dozens of eyes on him. Some people looked angry on his behalf. Others looked curious. A few looked uncomfortable and tried to look away. But no one could ignore what was happening. Marcus knew this moment was important. How he responded would matter. He had been in situations like this before, though never quite this public. Over the years, he had learned that staying calm was his greatest weapon. When people expected him to get angry or loud, staying peaceful confused them. It made them look bad, not him. He looked directly at Patricia. She was still standing in the aisle with her arms crossed. Her face showed no sign of backing down. She believed she was right. She believed she was doing her job. She could not see or would not see that she was being cruel and unfair. "Ma'am," Marcus said slowly, "I understand there might be some confusion, but as the head flight attendant just confirmed, my upgrade is legitimate. It is in your computer system. I was given this boarding pass by your gate agent. I have done nothing wrong. I am simply trying to take the seat that was assigned to me." Patricia's jaw tightened. "I am just concerned about maintaining the quality of service that our premium passengers expect," she said. The words sounded practiced, like something from a training manual. But the way she looked at Marcus told the real story. "Are you suggesting that I would somehow lower the quality of this cabin?" Marcus asked. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath now. "What exactly about me concerns you?" Patricia opened her mouth, then closed it. She knew she could not answer that question honestly. If she said what she was really thinking, she would reveal her prejudice. Everyone would know, so she changed tactics. "It is just policy to verify upgrades when there are questions," she said. "But there are no questions," Richard interrupted. The head flight attendant looked stressed. Sweat was forming on his forehead. "I have verified the upgrade. Mr. Wellington's boarding pass is valid. Patricia, I think we should move on and prepare for departure." "I'm just trying to do my job," Patricia said, but her voice was rising. She was getting emotional now. She had expected Marcus to leave quietly. She had expected him to feel embarrassed and move to the back of the plane. But he was not doing that. He was standing his ground politely but firmly. And it was making her look bad. The man in seat 1B stood up again. He was tall and broad-shouldered. His face was still red with anger. "I am a first-class passenger," he said loudly. "And I am complaining right now. I'm complaining about you and your disgraceful behavior." He pointed at Patricia. "This man has every right to be here. He has a valid ticket. He has been nothing but polite. And you are treating him like a criminal. You should be ashamed of yourself." Several other passengers nodded and murmured in agreement. A younger man a few rows back called out, "This is discrimination, pure and simple." The woman with the phone kept recording. "I am getting all of this," she said. "The whole world is going to see what is happening here." Patricia looked around wildly. This was not going the way she expected. She thought the other passengers would support her. She thought they would understand she was trying to protect them. Instead, they were turning against her. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude toward these strangers. They did not know him. They did not know who he was or what he did. But they were standing up for him because they recognized injustice when they saw it. It gave him hope. It reminded him that not everyone was like Patricia. He raised his hand gently. "Please, everyone," he said. "I appreciate your support. I really do. But let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. Let's all stay calm." The man in 1B sat down slowly, but he was still glaring at Patricia. "Fine," he said. But this is absolutely unacceptable. I fly this airline every week and I have never seen anything like this. Richard looked at Patricia. Patricia, I need you to go to the back of the plane and help with the economy passengers. I will handle things here. Patricia's mouth opened in shock. But Richard, now please, Richard said. His voice was firm. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue, but she could see she had lost. Richard was her supervisor. The passengers were against her. Even her attempt to get Marcus removed had failed. She turned and walked quickly toward the back of the plane. She did not look at anyone. Her face was bright red. Marcus watched her go. He did not feel victorious. He felt tired. This should not have happened. He should have been able to sit down in his seat without any drama. But because of his skin color and his casual clothes, he had been judged and found wanting by a stranger who knew nothing about him. Richard turned to Marcus. Mr. Wellington, I'm so sorry. That should never have happened. Please accept my sincere apology on behalf of the airline. Thank you, Marcus said. I appreciate that. Is there anything I can get you? A drink, snacks? Anything at all? I am fine, thank you. I just want to sit down and have a peaceful flight. Richard nodded. Of course. Again, I am truly sorry. He hesitated, then added, I am going to file a report about this incident. What happened was not acceptable. Marcus nodded. He appreciated Richard's honesty and his attempt to make things right. It was not Richard's fault. He had done the right thing. As Richard walked away, Marcus finally sat down properly in his seat. He buckled his seatbelt and let out a long breath. His hands were shaking slightly. The adrenaline was still pumping through his body. Confrontation always did this to him, even when he stayed outwardly calm. The man in seat 1B turned around. I am so sorry you had to go through that, he said. That was completely out of line. Thank you for speaking up, Marcus said. It meant a lot. I am Robert Chen, the man said, extending his hand over the seat. Marcus shook it. Marcus Wellington. Robert's eyes widened. Marcus Wellington? The Marcus Wellington from Cloud Tech Solutions? Marcus nodded. He saw recognition dawn on Robert's face. Oh my God, Robert said. I pitched to your company 2 years ago. I am a venture capitalist. I tried to get you to invest in one of my startups. Small world, Marcus said with a slight smile. Robert shook his head in disbelief. That flight attendant has no idea who you are. You are one of the most successful businessmen in the country. You are probably richer than everyone on this plane combined. Marcus shrugged. Money does not matter in situations like this. She did not see a successful businessman. She saw a black man in casual clothes and decided I did not belong. If I had been wearing a suit, maybe things would have been different. Or maybe not. Either way, it should not matter what I wear or what I look like. I had a valid ticket. That should be enough. Robert nodded slowly. You are right. You are absolutely right. But it is still shocking. I cannot believe that just happened. I can, Marcus said quietly. This is not new for me. It is just the first time it happened on a plane. The woman across the aisle leaned over. I recorded the whole thing, she said. If you want, I can send it to you. Or post it online. People need to see this. Marcus thought about it. Part of him wanted the world to see what had happened. Part of him wanted Patricia to face consequences. But another part of him was just tired. Tired of having to fight. Tired of having to prove himself over and over again. Let me think about it, he said. Can I get your contact information? Of course. She pulled out a business card and handed it to him. Her name was Jennifer Martinez. She was a lawyer. Thank you for recording it, Marcus said. And thank you for caring enough to do that. Someone had to document it, Jennifer said. Otherwise, people might not believe it happened. Marcus knew she was right. People who had never experienced discrimination often did not believe it still happened. They thought racism was something from the past. They thought everyone was treated equally now. But Marcus knew the truth. He lived it every day in small ways and sometimes in big ways like today. The plane's engine started. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Morrison. I apologize for the delay. We had a small issue to resolve, but we are ready to depart now. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for takeoff. Marcus looked out the window as the plane began to push back from the gate. The workers on the ground waved their orange batons. The sun was bright and warm. It was going to be a beautiful day for flying, but Marcus's heart was heavy. He had won this battle. He was sitting in his assigned seat. Patricia had been sent away. The other passengers supported him. But the war was far from over. Tomorrow or next week or next month he would face another Patricia, maybe in a store or a restaurant or a hotel, maybe on another plane. Because this was his reality. This was what it meant to be black in America, no matter how successful he became. He closed his eyes and tried to let it go. He tried to focus on his upcoming meeting. He tried to think about positive things. But the hurt was still there, sitting heavy in his chest like a stone. He wondered how many more times he would have to prove he belonged. He wondered if there would ever be a day when he could just exist without being questioned or doubted or judged. The plane lifted off the ground and climbed into the sky. Marcus opened his eyes and looked out at the clouds. Up here, everything looked peaceful and beautiful. Up here, differences disappeared. Everyone was just people in a metal tube flying through the air. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign turned off with a soft ding. Around Marcus, passengers began moving around. Some stood up to stretch. Others pulled out laptops and tablets. The flight attendants started preparing drinks and snacks. Everything seemed normal now, but Marcus could still feel the tension in the air. People kept glancing at him. Some looked sympathetic, others looked curious. Richard, the head flight attendant, came to Marcus's seat with a bottle of water and a warm towel. "Compliments of the captain," he said quietly. "He heard about what happened. He wants you to know that this airline does not tolerate discrimination of any kind." "Thank you," Marcus said, accepting the water. "Please tell the captain I appreciate it." Richard nodded and moved on. Marcus took a sip of water and tried to relax. He wanted to work on his laptop, but his mind kept replaying the confrontation with Patricia. Her words echoed in his head. "You don't belong here." The words stung because he had heard them before in different forms throughout his life. When he was a child, he heard them at school when he was the only black student in advanced classes. When he was a teenager, he heard them from store owners who followed him around thinking he would steal. When he started his business, he heard them from investors who did not believe a young black man could build a successful tech company. He had proved them all wrong, but no matter how much he achieved, there was always someone ready to tell him he did not belong. The man in seat 1B, Robert Chen, turned around again. "How are you doing?" he asked with genuine concern. "I am okay," Marcus said. "Just processing everything." "I cannot stop thinking about it," Robert said. "I keep wondering what would have happened if we had not spoken up. Would she have forced you off the plane?" "Maybe," Marcus said. "Or maybe I would have had to call my lawyer. Or maybe I would have just moved to economy to avoid more drama. I have learned to pick my battles carefully." "That is so unfair," Robert said. "You should not have to make those calculations." "No, I should not. But that is the reality." A young woman from a few rows back walked up to Marcus. She looked nervous. She was in her 20s with dark curly hair and brown skin. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I hope I'm not bothering you. But I wanted to say thank you." Marcus looked up at her with surprise. "Thank you for what?" "For handling that situation with so much dignity," she said. Her eyes were bright with emotion. "I am Latina, and I have faced discrimination too. Not like that, but in other ways. Watching you stay so calm and strong inspired me. It reminded me that we do not have to shrink ourselves to make other people comfortable." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "What is your name?" "Sophia." "Sophia, thank you for telling me that. It means more than you know. Sometimes when these things happen, I wonder if I handled it right. I wonder if I should have been more forceful or more angry. But anger rarely solves anything." "You handled it perfectly," Sophia said. "You showed everyone what grace under pressure looks like." She paused, then added, "Can I give you my email? I run a nonprofit that helps young people of color get into tech careers. I would love to talk to you about our work sometime." "Of course," Marcus said. He pulled out his phone and she shared her contact information. "I will definitely reach out. What you are doing is important." Sophia smiled widely. "Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your flight." She walked back to her seat, and Marcus felt a small warmth spread in his chest. Maybe something good could come from this awful experience. Jennifer Martinez, the lawyer who had recorded the incident, came over next. She sat down in the empty seat beside Marcus. "Do you mind if I sit here for a minute?" "Not at all," Marcus said. "I have been thinking about that video," Jennifer said. "I think you should let me post it online. Not for revenge, but for accountability. People need to see what still happens. They need to understand that discrimination is not something from history books. It is happening right now, today, on airplanes and everywhere else." Marcus considered her words carefully. "I understand what you are saying, but I also know that once something goes online, you cannot control it. It takes on a life of its own. My face would be everywhere. People would have opinions about how I handled it. Some would support me. Others would criticize me. They would dig into my life. It would become a whole thing." "That is true," Jennifer admitted. "But think about the flight attendant. If there are no consequences, she will do this to someone else. Maybe to someone who does not have your confidence or resources. Maybe to someone who will be traumatized by it." She was right, and Marcus knew it. His silence might protect him, but it would not protect the next person Patricia decided did not belong. "Let me think about it until we land," Marcus said. "I want to make sure I am making the right decision for the right reasons." Jennifer nodded. "That's fair. I will give you the video either way. You can decide what to do with it." As she walked back to her seat, another passenger approached. This was an older white man, probably in his 70s. He wore a crisp button-down shirt and had kind eyes. "Young man," he said, "I could not help but overhear your conversation. I wanted to tell you something. I am a retired judge. I spent 40 years in the legal system, and what I saw today was blatant discrimination. If you decide to take action against the airline, you would have a strong case. I would be happy to testify as a witness." Marcus was touched. "Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that." "My name is Harold Brennan," the man said, handing Marcus his card. "I watched you handle that situation with remarkable maturity. You are a credit to yourself and your family." After Harold walked away, Marcus looked down at the card in his hand. He had only been on this plane for an hour, and already he had collected allies. People he had never met before were offering to help him. It was overwhelming and comforting at the same time. Robert turned around again. "You are handling all of this so well. I think most people would be falling apart." "I am good at looking calm on the outside," Marcus admitted. "Inside, I am still upset. I am hurt and angry and tired, but I learned a long time ago that showing those emotions to the world often makes things worse, especially for black men. People expect us to be angry. They are waiting for us to confirm their stereotypes. So I stay calm, I stay dignified, and I let my actions speak louder than my emotions." "That is a lot of pressure," Robert said. "It is. But it is the world we live in." The flight attendants came by with lunch. Marcus ordered a salad and some fruit. He was not very hungry, but he needed to eat something. As he ate, more passengers came by. Some just smiled at him in solidarity. Others stopped to chat. A businessman gave him his card and said his company would love to work with Cloud Tech. A teacher thanked him for being a role model. A college student asked if she could interview him for her sociology class project on modern racism. Marcus was polite to everyone. He listened to their stories. He accepted their support. But inside, he felt exhausted. He had not asked to become a symbol. He had not asked to be the center of attention. He just wanted to fly to San Francisco for his meeting. Around mid-flight, Richard came back to check on him. "How are you doing, Mr. Wellington?" "I am okay," Marcus said. "Thank you for asking. I want you to know that I reported the incident to our management team. They are taking it very seriously." "What will happen to Patricia?" Marcus asked. Richard hesitated. "I cannot share details about employee matters, but I can tell you that this will be thoroughly investigated." Marcus nodded. Part of him wanted Patricia to lose her job. She had humiliated him in front of dozens of people. She had treated him like he was less than human. But another part of him remembered that she was a person too. A person with biases and prejudices, yes. But still a person who probably had a family and bills to pay. I do not want to ruin her life, Marcus said quietly. I just want her to understand what she did was wrong. I want her to see that she hurt me. I want her to change. Richard looked surprised. That is very generous of you. It is not about being generous, Marcus said. It is about believing that people can grow and change. If we just punish and shame people, they become defensive. They do not learn. But if we create opportunities for real understanding, maybe we can make actual progress. Richard nodded slowly. That is a wise perspective. After Richard left, Marcus finally opened his laptop. He tried to focus on his work, but his mind kept wandering. He thought about all the people who had supported him today, strangers who had no obligation to speak up but did anyway. It gave him hope. It reminded him that while there were people like Patricia in the world, there were also people like Robert and Jennifer and Sophia and Harold. He thought about his company, Cloud Tech Solutions. He had built it from nothing. When he started, he was just a 22-year-old kid with a dream and a laptop. He had faced rejection after rejection. Investors did not want to take a chance on him. They gave their money to white founders with less experience and weaker ideas. But Marcus kept going. He believed in his vision. He worked harder than everyone else. He proved himself over and over again until he could not be ignored. Now Cloud Tech was worth billions. It employed thousands of people. It had changed the industry. Marcus had achieved more than he ever dreamed possible. But success had not protected him from Patricia's prejudice. Money had not made him immune to discrimination. He could buy this entire airline if he wanted to, but he could not buy respect from someone who had already decided he was less than. That was the painful truth he had learned over the years. Racism did not care about your bank account or your accomplishments. It saw only skin color, and no amount of success could change that. The only thing that could change it was people like Patricia choosing to examine their own biases and do better. Marcus looked out the window at the clouds below. They looked soft and peaceful. He wished life could be that simple. He wished he could float above all the hate and judgment and just exist, but he could not. None of them could. They all had to live in this messy, complicated world and figure out how to treat each other with basic human decency. The plane started its descent into San Francisco. Marcus closed his laptop and prepared for landing. His meeting was in 3 hours. He needed to focus. He needed to be sharp. But first, he needed to decide what to do about that video. Jennifer was waiting for his answer. The plane touched down smoothly at San Francisco International Airport. The tires squeaked against the runway. Passengers around Marcus began gathering their belongings. He sat still for a moment, collecting his thoughts. The flight that should have been routine had turned into something much bigger. He could feel it. This moment would not just fade away quietly. As the plane taxied to the gate, Marcus saw Patricia standing near the front of the cabin. She was helping passengers with their bags, but her movements were stiff and mechanical. Her face was pale. She carefully avoided looking in his direction. Marcus wondered what was going through her mind. Did she regret what she had said? Did she understand the gravity of her actions? Or did she still believe she had been right? The plane stopped at the gate. The seatbelt sign turned off. Everyone stood up at once, creating the usual chaos of people reaching for overhead bins and crowding into the aisles. Marcus waited patiently in his seat. He was in no hurry. His meeting was not for another 3 hours. Robert Chen turned around one more time. Marcus, it was an honor to meet you even under these circumstances. I am going to email you. Maybe we can set up a proper meeting to discuss some opportunities. I would like that, Marcus said, shaking Robert's hand. Thank you again for speaking up. Anyone would have done the same. No, Marcus said firmly. Not everyone. Many people would have stayed silent. You did not. That takes courage. Robert smiled, looking pleased and a little embarrassed. He grabbed his briefcase and joined the line of passengers waiting to exit. Jennifer Martinez came over with her phone in her hand. Have you decided about the video? Marcus took a deep breath. He had thought about little else during the landing. Yes, he said. I want you to send it to me, but I do not want you to post it yet. I want to handle this carefully and thoughtfully. Jennifer nodded. I understand. I will send it to your email right now. She typed on her phone. Done. If you change your mind and want me to post it, just let me know. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you for recording it in the first place. We have to document these things, she said. That is the only way things change. As passengers filed off the plane, Marcus finally stood up. He pulled his backpack from the overhead bin and slung it over his shoulder. He walked slowly toward the exit. When he reached the front of the cabin, he saw Richard standing there with the captain. The captain was a tall man with gray hair and a serious expression. Mr. Wellington, the captain said, extending his hand. I am Captain Morrison. I want to apologize personally for what happened on my aircraft. That behavior does not represent our airline or our values. Marcus shook his hand. Thank you, Captain. I have filed a formal complaint, Captain Morrison continued. The airline will conduct a full investigation. I want to assure you that this will be taken seriously at the highest levels. I appreciate that, Marcus said. As he spoke, Marcus noticed movement from the corner of his eye. Patricia was standing near the galley kitchen watching them. When she saw Marcus looking at her, her face crumbled. Tears filled her eyes. She took a hesitant step forward. Mr. Wellington, she said, her voice shaking, I need to apologize. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I let my assumptions and prejudices control my actions, and I hurt you. I am so sorry. The apology seemed genuine, but Marcus could see it came from fear as much as remorse. Patricia had realized who he was. She had learned about his wealth and status. Now she was terrified of losing her job. Marcus wondered if she would have apologized if he had just been a regular person. Patricia, Marcus said calmly, I accept your apology, but I need you to understand something. You did not treat me that way because of anything I did. You treated me that way because of how I looked. You made assumptions based on my skin color and my clothes. You decided I did not belong before you even knew my name. Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I am so ashamed. I have been working for this airline for 20 years, and I have never done anything like this before. Maybe you have, Marcus said gently. Maybe you just never realized it. Prejudice is not always loud and obvious. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is just a feeling or an assumption that you do not even notice you are making. I will do better, Patricia said. I promise I will do better. I hope you will, Marcus said. Because the next person you treat this way might not be as patient as I was. They might not have the confidence or resources to stand up for themselves. And that is not fair. Patricia nodded again, wiping her eyes with a tissue. Is there anything I can do to make this right? Marcus thought for a moment. An idea was forming in his mind. Actually, there might be, but let me think about it and get back to you. He left the plane and walked through the jet bridge into the airport. As soon as he entered the terminal, his phone started buzzing with notifications. News of the incident was already spreading. Someone had posted about it on social media. The hashtag was already trending. People were talking about it, sharing their own stories of discrimination, expressing outrage and support. Marcus sighed. The decision about whether to keep this private had been taken out of his hands. The world already knew. Now he had to decide how to respond. He found a quiet corner near his gate and sat down. He pulled out his phone and called his assistant, Karen. She had been with him since the early days of cloud tech. Marcus, I have been seeing things online, Karen said as soon as she answered. Are you okay? I am fine, Marcus said. But we need to do some damage control. Or maybe not damage control. Maybe opportunity control? What do you mean? Marcus explained his idea. As he talked, he could hear Karen typing notes. When he finished, there was a moment of silence. That is brilliant, Karen finally said. And very, Marcus. Most people would want revenge. You want reconciliation? Revenge does not change anything, Marcus said. But education might. I will start making calls, Karen said. Give me a few hours. Marcus hung up and checked his email. The video from Jennifer was there. He watched it all the way through. Seeing himself on screen, staying calm while Patricia insulted him was harder than he expected. He could see the hurt in his own eyes even though he had kept his voice steady. He could see the shock on the other passengers' faces. He could see Patricia's prejudice written clearly across her features. This video would go viral. There was no doubt about that. It was already starting. The question was how to use it for good instead of just for outrage. His phone rang. It was an unknown number, but Marcus answered anyway. Mr. Wellington, this is David Chambers. I am the CEO of the airline. I cannot express how deeply sorry I am about what happened on your flight today. Thank you for calling, Marcus said. We are conducting a full investigation, David continued. Patricia Hendricks has been suspended pending the outcome. I want to assure you that we take discrimination very seriously. Mr. Chambers, can I ask you something? Of course. What kind of training do your flight attendants receive about unconscious bias and discrimination? There was a pause. We have some basic diversity training as part of their initial onboarding. Basic training that happens once 20 years ago is not enough, Marcus said. People need ongoing education. They need to understand not just what discrimination is, but how it manifests in subtle ways, how assumptions can hurt people, how to check their own biases. You are absolutely right, David said. Would you be willing to help us develop a better program? This was exactly what Marcus had hoped for. Yes, I would. But I have some conditions. Name them. First, Patricia Hendricks should not be fired. She should go through extensive training and education. She should have to understand what she did and why it was wrong. But I do not believe destroying her life will help anything. David was quiet for a moment. That is very generous of you. It is not about generosity. It is about believing in rehabilitation over punishment. Second, this training program should be mandatory for all airline employees, not just flight attendants. Everyone from baggage handlers to executives. Third, you should partner with organizations that specialize in anti-racism education. Do not just create something in-house. Get experts involved. We will do all of that, David promised. Anything else? Yes, I want to be actively involved in developing the program. I want to make sure it is meaningful and not just a box-checking exercise. You have my word, David said. Mr. Wellington, I know this has been a terrible experience for you, but I hope we can turn it into something positive. That is my hope too, Marcus said. After the call ended, Marcus sat back in his chair. His meeting was in 2 hours. He should prepare for it, but his mind was racing with ideas for the training program. He thought about all the times he had faced discrimination. What if some of those people had received better education? What if they had been taught to examine their assumptions? Maybe some of that pain could have been avoided. His phone buzzed again. It was a text from Sophia, the young woman from the plane who ran the nonprofit for young people of color in tech. Thank you again for talking to me. I just want you to know that you are my hero, not because you are rich or successful, but because you handled an impossible situation with so much grace. That is real strength. Marcus smiled. Messages like this reminded him why his work mattered. He was not just building a company. He was showing young people of color that they could succeed, that they could face adversity and overcome it, that they belonged anywhere they wanted to be. He texted back, "Thank you, Sophia. Let's set up a time to talk about your nonprofit. I want to support the work you are doing." Her response came immediately. "That would be amazing. Thank you so much." Marcus put his phone away and finally pulled out his laptop to prepare for his meeting. But before he opened his files, he allowed himself one moment to feel everything he had been holding in. The hurt, the anger, the exhaustion, the frustration of having to prove himself over and over again. He let it all wash over him. Then he took a deep breath and let it go. He could not change what happened. He could not change Patricia or her prejudice with a single conversation. But he could use this experience to create something meaningful. He could help educate thousands of people. He could maybe prevent this from happening to someone else. That was power. That was real change, and that was worth fighting for. 2 months had passed since that morning flight. The video had gone viral exactly as Marcus predicted. Within 24 hours, it had been viewed millions of times. News outlets covered the story. Talk shows discussed it. Social media exploded with reactions, opinions, and personal stories from people who had experienced similar discrimination. The hashtag became a movement. People shared their own experiences of being told they did not belong. Black people, brown people, poor people, immigrants. The stories poured in from around the world. What happened to Marcus on that plane had opened a door. People who had stayed silent for years suddenly found their voices. Marcus had given several interviews. He had been careful with his words, always steering the conversation away from anger and toward education. He talked about unconscious bias. He explained how prejudice worked in subtle ways. He called for understanding and change, not vengeance. The airline faced enormous pressure. Many people called for boycotts. Others demanded that Patricia be fired. The company's stock price dropped. They lost customers, but the CEO, David Chambers, stayed true to his word. He announced a comprehensive, new training program developed in partnership with leading anti-racism organizations and with significant input from Marcus Wellington himself. Today was the first day of that training program. Marcus stood outside a hotel conference room in Chicago. Inside were 200 airline employees from across the country. Flight attendants, pilots, gate agents, customer service representatives. They had been brought here for a 3-day intensive training session. Similar sessions would happen in cities across the nation over the next 6 months until every single employee had been through the program. Karen, his assistant, stood beside him. "You ready for this?" she asked. "As ready as I will ever be," Marcus said. "You are doing something important here. You know that, right?" "I hope so. I really hope so." They entered the conference room together. The space was large and well lit. Employees sat at round tables in groups of 8. Some looked curious. Others looked defensive or uncomfortable. Marcus could see resistance on some faces. Change was hard, especially when it forced people to examine themselves. At a table near the front, Marcus saw Patricia Hendricks. Their eyes met briefly. She looked different from the confident, rigid woman who had confronted him on the plane. Her face was thinner. There were dark circles under her eyes. She looked like someone who had not been sleeping well. When she saw Marcus, she looked down quickly at her hands. David Chambers stood at the front of the room. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I know you all have busy schedules, and I know some of you may be wondering why we are doing this. 2 months ago, something happened on one of our flights that should never have happened. A valued customer was discriminated against because of his race. That incident was caught on video and seen by millions of people around the world. The room was completely silent. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. We could have responded to that incident with just punishment and policies," David continued. But the man who was discriminated against had a different idea. He believed that education and understanding could create real change. So he worked with us to develop this program. Today, I am honored to introduce you to Marcus Wellington, CEO of Cloud Tech Solutions, and the man who is going to help us all do better. There was applause, though it was tentative and awkward. Marcus walked to the front of the room. He looked out at all the faces watching him. Some people knew who he was now. Others had seen the video. All of them were here because of what Patricia had done to him on that plane. "Good morning," Marcus said. His voice was calm and warm. "I am going to start by telling you something that might surprise you. I do not hate Patricia Hendricks. I am not here for revenge. I am here because I believe that people can change. I believe that with the right education and willingness to be honest with ourselves, we can all do better." He paused and looked directly at Patricia. She was crying quietly, her hands covering her face. 2 months ago, I was upgraded to first class on a flight to San Francisco. I was wearing jeans and a sweater. I was carrying an old backpack, and a flight attendant decided, based on how I looked, that I did not belong in first class. She told me to go to the back of the plane. She suggested I would be more comfortable there. She said first class needed to maintain certain standards. Marcus's voice remained even, but everyone could hear the pain underneath. What she really meant was that a black man in casual clothes did not fit her image of what a first-class passenger should look like. She made assumptions based on my race and appearance, and those assumptions hurt me deeply. He clicked a button and the video appeared on a large screen behind him. Everyone watched in silence. When it ended, the room felt heavy with emotion and discomfort. "I want you to watch that video and really think about it," Marcus said. "Think about the assumptions that were made. Think about how it felt to be told I did not belong. Think about all the times in your own lives when you have made assumptions about people based on how they look." He advanced to the next slide. It showed statistics about racial profiling in travel, shopping, and housing. The numbers were shocking. People of color were stopped, questioned, and accused more often than white people in virtually every setting. "This is not just about one flight attendant having a bad day," Marcus explained. "This is about systemic bias that affects millions of people every single day. But here's the thing about unconscious bias. It is called unconscious for a reason. Most of us do not even realize we have these prejudices. They are built into us by society, by media, by our experiences and upbringing." He spent the next hour walking through examples and scenarios. He made them uncomfortable. He challenged them. He asked hard questions. But he did it with compassion, not anger. He wanted them to understand, not to feel attacked. During the lunch break, Marcus sat alone in a small room reviewing his notes for the afternoon session. There was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," he called. The door opened. Patricia Hendricks stood there trembling. "May I speak with you?" Marcus gestured to a chair. "Please sit down." Patricia sat on the edge of the chair like she might run at any moment. "I have been wanting to talk to you since that day. I have rehearsed what I would say 1,000 times. But now that you are here in front of me, I do not know where to start." "Start wherever feels right," Marcus said gently. Patricia took a shaky breath. "I have barely slept since that day. I keep seeing your face. I keep hearing my own words. You don't belong here." God, how could I say that to another human being? Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "I destroyed your morning. I humiliated you in front of everyone. And the worst part is that you did not deserve any of it. You were kind and patient and dignified, and I was cruel." "Patricia, can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Why did you treat me that way?" "I do not know," she whispered. "I have been in therapy trying to figure that out. I think I grew up with certain ideas about who belonged in certain spaces. My parents never said anything explicitly racist, but there were little comments, little assumptions, and I absorbed them without even realizing it. That is how bias works," Marcus said. "It is insidious. It gets into our thinking before we even know it is there." "I am so sorry," Patricia said, her voice breaking. "I know saying sorry is not enough. It does not undo what I did, but I need you to know that I am deeply, truly sorry. Not just because I got caught, not just because it went viral, but because I hurt you. I treated you as less than human, and you did not deserve that." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. He could see her pain was genuine. She had been living with the weight of what she did for 2 months. The whole world had judged her. She had lost friends. Her family was embarrassed. She faced hatred and threats online. But more than that, she had to live with the knowledge of what she was capable of. "Patricia, I forgive you," Marcus said quietly. She looked up at him with shock. "How? How can you forgive me?" "Because holding on to anger would only hurt me, not you. Because I believe you are genuinely sorry. And because I believe you can change. That is why I asked the airline not to fire you. I do not think punishment alone teaches anything. But I think this experience, as painful as it has been, has taught you something important." "It has," Patricia said. "It has changed everything about how I see the world. I notice my assumptions now. I catch myself making judgments based on appearance. I am learning to question my first reactions to people." "That is good," Marcus said. "That is real growth. Keep doing that work. It is not easy and it is never finished. But it is important. Why are you being so kind to me?" Patricia asked. "After what I did?" "Because someone was kind to me once when I made a mistake," Marcus said. "Not a mistake like yours, but a mistake nonetheless. And that kindness changed me. It taught me more than any punishment could have. I am hoping to pass that forward." Patricia wiped her eyes. "I will spend the rest of my career making this right. I will learn. I will do better. I promise you." After Patricia left, Marcus sat alone for a few more minutes. He thought about the journey that had brought him to this moment. From that humiliating confrontation on the plane, to this conference room where real change was beginning to happen. The afternoon session focused on practical strategies for recognizing and combating bias. Marcus brought in expert facilitators who led discussions and role-playing exercises. By the end of the day, he could see that something had shifted in the room. People were engaged. They were asking questions. They were sharing their own stories and biases. Over the next 2 days, the training went deeper. They discussed not just racial bias, but also bias based on class, gender, disability, age, and appearance. They learned about microaggressions and how to respond to discrimination when they witnessed it. They practiced difficult conversations. On the final day, Patricia stood up during a session and shared her story with the entire room. She did not have to do it. Marcus had not asked her to. But she chose to. "I am the flight attendant from that video," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I am the one who told Mr. Wellington he did not belong in first class. I am the one who made those terrible assumptions based on his race. And I want to tell all of you something. What I did came from bias I did not even know I had. I thought I was just doing my job. I thought I was protecting our standards. But what I was really doing was enforcing my own narrow ideas about who belongs where. The room was absolutely silent. Mr. Wellington could have destroyed my life, Patricia continued. He had every right to demand I be fired. Instead, he asked for this. He asked for education and change. He showed me more grace than I showed him. And now it is my responsibility to honor that grace by becoming better, by helping all of us become better. When she sat down, several people were crying. Marcus saw understanding dawn on faces around the room. This was not abstract anymore. It was real. It was human. 6 months later, Marcus stood in his office in New York looking at a report on his desk. The airline's new training program had reached all 50,000 of their employees. Customer complaints about discrimination had dropped by 65%. Several other airlines had adopted similar programs. The movement had spread beyond aviation into retail, hospitality, and other industries. Sophia's nonprofit had received a major grant from Cloud Tech Solutions and was expanding to 10 more cities. Robert Chen had become a partner in several initiatives to increase diversity in venture capital. Jennifer Martinez was working with civil rights organizations to document and fight discrimination. Harold Brennan, the retired judge, was teaching courses on implicit bias at a local law school. And Patricia Hendricks was now a peer educator, traveling to different airline hubs to share her story and help train other employees. She had turned her greatest shame into her greatest contribution. Marcus's phone buzzed. It was a message from his mother. She had sent him a photo. It was an old picture of him as a little boy on his first airplane ride. He was grinning at the camera, so excited to be flying. The message read, "Remember this day? You were so happy. You said you wanted to fly everywhere and see the whole world. I am proud that even when someone tried to clip your wings, you used it to help others soar." Marcus smiled. He sent back a heart emoji. Then he looked out his window at the New York skyline. The city stretched out below him, full of millions of people with their own stories, struggles, and biases. Change was slow. It was hard. There would be more Patricias in the world. There would be more moments when he would have to prove he belonged. But there would also be more allies, more understanding, more progress. He thought about that morning on the plane, how humiliating it had been, how much it had hurt, but also how it had created an opportunity, a chance to turn pain into purpose, a chance to help thousands of people see their own biases and choose to do better. That was worth it. That was worth all of it. Marcus Wellington still flew commercial. He still wore jeans and carried his old backpack. He still sat in economy when he booked his own tickets, because he never wanted to forget where he came from. He never wanted to lose touch with ordinary people and ordinary struggles, but now when he flew, things were different. Flight attendants smiled at him warmly. They welcomed everyone with genuine respect, and sometimes, rarely but occasionally, a flight attendant would quietly approach him and say, "Thank you for the training. It changed how I see people. It changed me." Those moments made everything worthwhile. Those moments reminded Marcus why he had chosen education over anger, reconciliation over revenge, hope over bitterness. The world was not perfect. It probably never would be. But it was better than it was 2 months ago. And if Marcus could help make it even a little bit better, then every uncomfortable moment, every painful memory, every sacrifice was worth it. He belonged everywhere. They all did. And slowly, one conversation, one training session, one changed heart at a time, the world was beginning to understand that truth.